Goncalves, Portuguese Sports Journalist. It's lovely to have you. Of course, Ghana and Portugal haven't yet played, but what have you made of the World Cup so far?
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been fascinating, hasn't it? We've seen a lot of goals. We've seen a shock already with the Argentina-Saudi Arabia match, which was unbelievable. What a comeback. I think the excitement has been building and building, and finally we've arrived, and it's amazing. And of course, I always feel that the World Cup doesn't truly start until you see your own country play, if you see what I mean. I think that's when the excitement truly gets to the next level. So far it's been amazing, but the real thing starts when we see our teams take to the field.
Okay, let's dive straight into it. Cristiano Ronaldo, the news in the last 30 minutes come out that he's agreed by mutual consent to leave Manchester United. With the interview coming out with Piers Morgan just around the time the Portuguese team was gathering together, we saw that video between himself and Bruno Fernandes. They say it was nothing, but with all that buzz surrounding him, all that noise surrounding him, and his relationship with Manchester United, has that in any way affected the Portuguese camp?
Well, they're all saying the right things. They're all saying everything we want to hear as Portuguese football fans. They're saying that it's a very pleasant environment. Everyone's happy. Everyone's getting along. So they're saying all the right things. Of course, there must be a little bit of tension behind the scenes. There must be a little bit of aggravation there, a little bit of disagreement. But ultimately, I think it's mainly noise in the media more than anything else. I think in Portugal, it's much less of an issue than it is internationally, let's say. I think certainly in the international media, we see it's been made out to be this huge thing. And in Portugal, it's more like we just want to forget about that. We want to move on. And I think the players are on the same page there. So I think it's not as bad as maybe it could have been. I think it's very poorly timed, this interview. I think it's a big distraction. But ultimately, I think the players have a good mentality, and I think they're managing to get past it.
Great. What's the feeling like in the Portuguese camp and amongst the Portuguese people? Because from the outside, we look at this team, and this is probably for us one of the best Portuguese teams we've seen in recent times. I think we'll go back to the 2000, between the Euro 2000 and 2004 with Figo and Ricoh stadiums coming around. I think from the outside, this looks like it's sort of a return of that golden generation, and we feel like this is a huge time and a good opportunity for Portugal to capitalize. Is that the feeling that is in Portugal at the moment?
I agree 100%. I think that people have the very same feeling. It's like that was obviously the golden generation, and we've been very blessed in the sense that we've managed to find a new one very quickly, very shortly afterwards. I think it's possibly even better, the squad depth. In terms of squad depth, it's probably even better than that squad we had in the beginning of the 2000s. Purely because of that squad depth and the talent all over the pitch. There's really no weak positions. So I think the sense is that it's kind of, this is getting to the point where we really have to make a push to win the World Cup. This is perhaps the best opportunity Portugal will ever have. What I will say is there's a bit of caution among some Portugal fans purely because they have their optimism quashed a little bit because of the manager in Fernando Santos, who has become, he's got the trademark style. He's become quite famous for his perhaps quite conservative, quite defensive football. And of course, Portuguese football fans, seeing the talent they have, the attacking talent they have, the flair players they have, they want to see Portugal go and attack teams. And I think the fact that Portugal won Euro 2016, playing quite a cautious style, maybe was actually in some way a bit of a negative in the sense that now Fernando Santos thinks that's the way we can win major tournaments. So I don't expect Portugal to be hugely exciting, despite the players they have. But often we see pragmatism is the way to be able to grind through and win these competitions. So I would say that Portugal have a really good chance, and that's despite the manager, who is a bit of a controversial figure.
Speaking of the manager, we saw some comments after the squad was named about not too many people are happy with the relationship between Jorge Mendes, Ronaldo's agent, the fact that there were some figures coming out about 18 of the 26 players in the Portuguese squad are clients of Jorge Mendes. With that surrounding, is that from the outside, it looks like it's a big deal in Portugal. Is that the case over there, or was just minor noise?
think it's a point that a lot of fans in the country do like to make. But at the same time, when you have a Portuguese super agent, the only real Portuguese super agent, it's not really that unreasonable to think that the majority of the team are also going to happen to be his clients. I think it's more. I don't think there's any conspiracy that he's favoriting the Jorge Mendes clients. I think it's just a case of, this is the situation. Most of Portugal's elite players will have Jorge Mendes as their agent. So ultimately, it's gonna just happen by chance more than anything. But I think, it's an issue that has been mentioned. I've seen some on Twitter. I get some mentions about the role that Jorge Mendes might have in controlling the decisions. But I don't think that's true. And I think even if it were, this is a hell of a squad, and ultimately Portugal should be fine regardless.
Okay, let's talk about the game on Thursday, Ghana versus Portugal. Is there any updates from the Portuguese camp in terms of injury, fitness issues, or everything is fine?
So everything's looking pretty good. I think the only concern has been Nuno Mendes at left back, who has been having a slight muscle issue, so he hasn't been training with the squad. So I'd be quite surprised if he were fit or he were ready to play against Ghana this Thursday. I think we're probably gonna see maybe Rafael Guerreiro play at left back instead. The other option is we see João Cancelo move to the left, and then we have Diogo Dalot come in at right back. So there are still very good options there, but it's a bit of a blow. He's had a very good season with PSG, so it would be nice to have him. And we'll see if he makes it. But ultimately, I think Fernando Santos won't risk it if he hasn't been able to train fully with the squad as yet, and this close to kickoff as well.
Let's talk about the confidence level of the Portuguese people. How is the confidence level like going into this game? Because of my like for Cristiano Ronaldo, I've been following Portugal in international competitions. And by Euro 2020, where they beat Hungary in the opening game, Portugal have seemed to struggle in opening games going back. So you go to the 2018 World Cup, where they drew with Spain. 2016, they drew their opening game against Austria. You go to 2014 World Cup, where they lost against Germany. The 2012 Euros, I think they drew their opening game. 2010, they drew. Then I think it's 2008 where they won 4-0 in their opening game. So between 2008 and 2020, the Portuguese team had won just 2 of their opening games. So considering their relative slow starters, what is the confidence level like coming against this Ghanaian team?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that statistic, actually. It's true, though, that the Portuguese teams do often seem to struggle at the beginning of tournaments. I would still say that the confidence levels are very high. Ultimately at this point, how much does the history really matter at the end of the day? It's all going to come down to that one match on the pitch. Nobody's thinking, we've really struggled in opening games before. So I don't think it's a huge concern. I think it's just a coincidence that happens. At the same time, of course, when you have a manager like Fernando Santos who's quite cautious, that obviously increases the chances that you're gonna end up drawing a game if you're not really putting the impetus in the match and on the offensive. But I think there's good confidence. I think Portugal know that this is the Portuguese fans know this is a very good squad. I think on paper it's maybe arguably, some people might argue it's the best squad because of the depth they have. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but there's an incredible amount of talent there. Yeah. So there is optimism, but I think there's cautious optimism purely because of the manager. And it comes back to the manager again. He's where a lot of fans seem to have their doubts.
Considering what is happening to Cristiano Ronaldo, what has happened to Cristiano Ronaldo at club form, at his club side this season, Man United, where he's been having to contend with the starting place. Sometimes he's on the bench, sometimes he's on the field. Is that a conversation that is being had in the Portuguese camp, that maybe he should be content with the place on the bench and be introduced in games, or he's a guarantee starter?
So yeah, I think that in the minds of the players themselves, certainly publicly, it seems that he is still seen as the main man. They like to give this impression that Ronaldo is still the central figure. He's the one that they rely on and they see as their ultimate leader. In terms of the fans themselves, however, there's more of a doubt, certainly, in terms of that. I think that there's a lot of football fans in Portugal that would like to see him drop to the bench from the beginning of games and have him as an option to come on and make his incredible impact off the bench. I think the problem with him starting is that regardless of whether he's playing well or badly, if Portugal were to fall behind in a match, Fernando Santos, I don't think, would bring him off. If he's playing badly and Portugal are losing and need a goal, he won't take him off. And that could be a huge detriment to Portugal's chance of winning. Whereas if he's on the bench and Portugal are losing and you can bring him on, that's a hell of an option to have off the bench. You know what Ronaldo can do in any given moment. So I think that is a genuine question that Portuguese football fans are having. But I would say in terms of Fernando Santos and the players, he's almost a guaranteed starter if he's fit and if he's ready to play.
Lastly, before we end this, who are the one or two names in the Ghana squad that are getting talked about in the Portuguese public? The one or two names to watch out for in that Ghana team.
Well, this is the thing. I think that Ghana are a bit of an unknown. I think that obviously you've got the famous players like the Ayew brothers, but I think that's a bit of a controversy in Ghana, is it not, that they were even included? So this is the thing. It's a bit of an unknown thing. I think you've got Lamptey as well, who obviously is known from England. So you've got these types of players, but I think that certainly Portuguese football fans are not hugely familiar with how Ghana are going to play. And obviously Fernando Santos has studied them a lot, and the team know exactly what to expect. But I think there's quite a lot of excitement to see, what this generation of Ghana players are able to do. I think it was a big surprise to a lot of football fans that they actually qualified ahead of Nigeria. So it's I would say that they're not too sure what to expect.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can both get a favorable result and there will not be too much grudge in there. And all the best to Portugal in there, and hopefully we can do this a bit more. That is if we both last very long in the competition.
Well, best of luck to Ghana as well. I hope you have a great tournament. We can go through together. How about that?
That'll work perfectly. Uruguay and South Korea can go home.